They were told they weren't marketable. They were paid less. They were erased from covers, campaigns, and history itself. And yet, they didn't just survive fashion. They redefined it. Before diversity became a trend, these women were breaking rules in an industry built to exclude them. What you're about to see isn't nostalgia. It's power, resistance, and legacy colliding. This is the 10 legendary Black supermodels, then and now. Stay with us to the end, because the real story of fashion was written by the women they never expected to win. Subscribe, and let's begin. Naomi Campbell, the woman who refused to be silent. London, late 1980s. Fashion was polished, powerful, and quietly segregated. Runways shimmered under chandelier lights. But behind the glamour were unspoken rules about who belonged and who didn't. Then a teenage girl with impossible poise and a walk like controlled thunder stepped into the frame. Naomi Campbell didn't ask for space. She occupied it. From her first strides down European catwalks, there was something different about her presence. It wasn't softness. It wasn't compliance. It was authority. Designers didn't try diversity when they cast Naomi. They relied on her. Editors didn't feature her to appear progressive. They trusted her to sell millions of copies. By the early 90s, she wasn't just in fashion. She was defining it. But success came with a quiet insult. Paid less, booked less, praised publicly, resisted privately. Naomi was performing at the highest level in a system that still treated her like an exception. And then she did something dangerous. She spoke. At a time when silence was the price of longevity, Naomi chose confrontation over comfort. In interviews, on stages, in rooms filled with decision-makers, she named discrimination out loud. She refused to smile through inequality. She refused to shrink to protect other people's fragility. Many thought the industry would replace her. Instead, it adjusted. As the supermodel era faded and younger faces cycled in, Naomi didn't disappear. She recalibrated. From runway titan to cultural force, from icon to advocate, she mentored emerging Black models. She pressured fashion houses to move beyond tokenism. She stepped into philanthropy and global humanitarian work, proving her influence was never just aesthetic, it was structural. Today, when Naomi appears, it isn't nostalgia, it's continuity. A reminder, a warning. She is no longer fighting to enter rooms. She owns them. Then, Naomi Campbell battled for visibility in an industry built to exclude her. Now, she stands as proof that longevity doesn't belong to the compliant. It belongs to the fearless. In fashion, it may have crowned her a supermodel, but Naomi crowned herself untouchable. Tyra Banks, the architect of her own empire. Los Angeles, early 1990s. Tyra Banks was young, ambitious, and already learning a hard truth. America wasn't quite ready for her. Agencies passed. Doors closed. The message was subtle but clear. There wasn't room for another Black girl at the top. So she left. Paris didn't hesitate. In Europe, Tyra exploded onto the runway scene, booking dozens of shows her first season. She moved with precision. But there was something else. Warmth. Where high fashion often demanded distance, Tyra offered presence. She could be couture one moment, commercial the next, not confined, not predictable. And then came 1997, the cover that changed everything. Tyra became the first Black woman to appear solo on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. It wasn't just symbolic, it was economic. Millions of copies sold, advertising dollars surged. The industry's oldest excuse, Black doesn't sell, cracked under measurable proof. But Tyra was never chasing approval. She was studying power. As the runway cycle threatened to repeat its pattern, youth peak replacement, she pivoted. Not away from fashion, but above it. She built America's next top model, turning a closed industry into a living room spectacle. For the first time, audiences saw the castings, the critiques, the emotional toll. She wasn't just a face, she was a producer, the decision maker, the owner. That shift was revolutionary. Tyra transformed visibility into infrastructure, fame into leverage, influence into equity. Critics came, controversies followed, but the impact was undeniable. She normalized different body types, personalities, backgrounds. She widened the lens. Today, Tyra doesn't compete for space. She engineers it. Then, she fought to enter rooms she wasn't meant to lead. Now, she builds the rooms and decides who gets the spotlight. Tyra Banks didn't just survive fashion. She franchised it. Iman, the woman who turned elegance into power. Paris, mid-1970s. Couture houses ruled the world, and beauty had a narrow definition. Pale European, predictable. Then Iman arrived, not loudly, not rebelliously, but unmistakably. She didn't look like the industry standard. She looked like royalty, born in Mogadishu, raised with education and cultural depth. Iman carried herself with composure that felt ancient and modern at once. When she stepped into Paris fashion, it wasn't as a trend. It was as a revelation. Designers didn't need to frame her beauty. It framed them. Yves Saint Laurent famously called her a dream. Photographers discovered that stillness became electric in her presence. She didn't beg the camera for attention. She commanded it quietly. But Iman understood something crucial. Admiration is not the same as security. In an industry that often celebrates Black women temporarily, she chose strategy over dependency. As her modeling dominance grew through the late 70s and 80s, she was already thinking beyond the runway. She had seen the gap, makeup shades that didn't exist for women like her, an entire market ignored. So she built it. Iman Cosmetics wasn't vanity branding. It was correction. She created products for women of color long before inclusivity became profitable marketing language. And it worked. The brand thrived because it answered a real absence. Then she expanded further. Humanitarian advocacy, global causes, public service. Her voice carried credibility because it wasn't borrowed from fame. It was rooted in experience. Over time, Iman stepped back from constant visibility, not fading, but refining. Today, when she appears, it is with intention, controlled, regal, self-defined. Then, Iman disrupted Eurocentric beauty, simply by existing within it. Now, she represents something rarer than fame, sovereignty. She didn't just model luxury. She became it. Beverly Johnson, the cover that changed everything. New York, 1974. Fashion magazines dictated beauty from glossy pages stacked in every grocery store checkout line in America. And on those covers, one thing was consistent. Black women were absent until August. Beverly Johnson didn't storm the industry. She studied it, trained, disciplined, precise. She understood that if she were given even one real opportunity, she couldn't afford to be average. She had to be undeniable. When American Vogue placed her on its cover, it wasn't just a photo shoot. It was a risk. Editors feared backlash. Advertisers questioned sales. The myth was deeply rooted. Black faces didn't move magazines. The issue sold out. And in that moment, decades of manufactured doubt collapsed under numbers no one could argue with. Beverly didn't just grace the cover. She dismantled an excuse. But history-making moments are heavy. Behind the triumph was pressure, isolation, and the quiet expectation that she represented an entire race flawlessly. Success did not shield her from exploitation or misconduct. The industry that applauded her breakthrough was still structurally unprepared to protect her. Years later, Beverly did something equally courageous. She told the truth. She spoke about abuse, about the cost of silence, about what it meant to survive an industry that profits from vulnerability. Her legacy expanded. She was no longer just the first Black woman on Vogue. She became a voice for accountability, safety, and self-worth. Author, speaker, witness. Today, retrospectives call her moment historic. But history doesn't capture the pressure of being first, of knowing that if you stumble, doors close behind you. Then, Beverly Johnson proved Black beauty could dominate at the highest commercial level. Now, she stands as proof that progress without protection is incomplete. She didn't just open the door. She forced it to stay open. Pat Cleveland, the woman who made fashion move. New York City, late 1960s. The world was shifting. Civil rights marches, disco rising, rebellion in the air. But on the runway, models were still expected to be silent mannequins. Walk straight. Don't emote. Don't disrupt. Then Pat Cleveland arrived, and she didn't walk. She danced, trained in performance, fluid in movement. Pat treated the runway like a stage instead of a conveyor belt. Fabric didn't just hang on her body. It lived. It swirled. It responded. Audiences didn't just see clothes. They felt them. Designers realized something radical. She wasn't modeling garments. She was animating them. In an era when black models were still fighting for consistent visibility, Pat became unforgettable. She worked with Halston, Yves Saint Laurent, Stephen Burrows, not as a token, but as a collaborator. She understood rhythm, silhouette, drama. She brought joy into rooms that had grown rigid with tradition. And then, as quickly as the industry embraced her, it cooled. Fashion has a habit of loving black creativity, but hesitating at black permanence. Trends shifted. Minimalism replaced spectacle. Pat's theatrical brilliance didn't align with the colder aesthetic of the 1980s. Opportunities narrowed, but she refused to vanish. Instead, she preserved the story. Through memoirs, interviews, appearances, she documented an era many romanticized, but rarely examined honestly, especially the racial tension behind the glamour. She became a living archive of fashion's most electric years. Decades later, the industry circled back. Designers rediscovered her influence. Modern runway theatrics suddenly looked familiar because they had been born in her movement. When she returned to the catwalk, it wasn't nostalgia, it was recognition. Then, Pat Cleveland changed how models moved and how fashion felt. Now, she stands as proof that expression is power. She didn't just follow fashion's rhythm, she gave it one. Grace Jones, the woman who refused to be defined. Paris, early 1970s. Grace Jones had already been rejected in America. Too sharp, too bold, too different. Agencies didn't know where to place her, and when an industry can't categorize you, it often shuts the door. Paris opened it. With her angular face, towering frame, and unflinching stare, Grace didn't fit into fashion. She confronted it. While others softened themselves for the camera, she intensified. Where traditional beauty leaned toward delicacy, she projected dominance, power, ambiguity. Designers who craved disruption saw in her something electric. Photographers turned her into living sculpture. Her collaborations, especially the geometric, almost architectural imagery that defined her visual era, didn't just sell clothes. They questioned gender. They questioned race. They questioned comfort. Grace wasn't decoration. She was declaration. But she didn't stop at modeling. That would have been containment. She moved into music, performance, film, carrying fashion with her. Album covers became high art. Stage costumes became statements. She treated her body as architecture, her presence as manifesto, and perhaps most radical of all, she refused explanation. In an industry obsessed with accessibility and relatability, Grace remained distant, controlled, mysterious. She did not shrink to reassure audiences. She did not dilute herself to secure contracts. When trends shifted towards safer commercial aesthetics, she stepped back, not defeated, but deliberate. Absence became strategy. When she reappeared, it was seismic. Today, younger generations don't see Grace Jones as retro. They see her as prophetic. Long before conversations about fluid identity and image ownership became mainstream, she embodied them, fearlessly, visibly. Then, Grace dismantled fashion's comfort zones. Now, she stands beyond trend cycles, untouchable, expanding, eternal. She wasn't ahead of her time. She was operating on her own. Alec Weck, the face that redefined beauty. London, mid-1990s. Fashion was evolving, but its definition of beauty was still tightly guarded, symmetrical, softened, Eurocentric. Then a young refugee from South Sudan stepped into frame, and everything the industry thought it knew about desirability was tested. Alec Weck didn't arrive polished by privilege. She arrived shaped by survival. Civil war had uprooted her childhood. Displacement had rewritten her sense of home. When she was discovered in London, she carried not just striking features, but history. Her skin was deep, luminous, uncompromisingly dark. Her head was closely cropped. Her features were distinctly African, not diluted for Western comfort. For decades, the industry had quietly suggested that darker skin was too niche, too risky for global markets. Alec made that assumption look small. When she appeared on international runways and in major editorials in 1997, it wasn't a gentle introduction. It was a visual reckoning. Designers didn't lighten her image. Photographers didn't soften her identity. She was presented exactly as she was, and audiences responded. The impact was immediate. Young girls with dark skin saw themselves reflected in high fashion for the first time, not as background, not as exception, as centerpiece. Alec didn't replace one standard with another. She expanded the spectrum. Beauty didn't narrow to accommodate her. It widened. But she understood visibility could be fleeting. Rather than chasing saturation, she stepped back strategically in the early 2000s. She chose longevity over overexposure, depth over trend, and she used her platform for something larger, speaking on refugees, displacement, African development. Her advocacy wasn't branding. It was lived experience. Today, Alec Weck's legacy is quieter but profound. Designers cite her as a turning point. Models with deeper skin tones credit her as proof that they do not need alteration to be accepted. Then, Alec Weck stood outside fashion's comfort zone, unapologetically. Now, she stands as evidence that authenticity can reshape an entire industry. She didn't ask to be softened. She asked to be seen. Veronica Webb, the mind behind the image. Detroit, late 1980s. Fashion had begun to place black faces on runways more visibly. But visibility is not the same as authority. Models were still expected to be silent vessels. Beautiful, replaceable, decorative. Veronica Webb was none of those things. From the beginning, there was a composure about her that felt deliberate. She didn't just understand how to hold a pose. She understood how the system worked around her. While others were celebrated for their look, Webb was respected for her intellect. Designers trusted her restraint. Editors valued her narrative control. She became one of the first black models to secure long-term beauty contracts that place her image consistently in mainstream America. Consistency, that was a shift. She wasn't marketed as a seasonal experiment. She was aspirational, stable, bankable. But what made Veronica distinct wasn't just her commercial success. It was her willingness to analyze the very industry she thrived in. In interviews, panels, essays, she spoke about pay disparities, access barriers, and the psychological weight of navigating predominantly white spaces. Her tone was measured, never explosive, and that made it harder to dismiss. She wasn't attacking fashion. She was decoding it. As trends evolved and the runway's spotlight dimmed, Veronica didn't cling to relevance through appearance. She transitioned into authorship and cultural commentary, writing about identity, race, and image with the same precision she once brought to minimalist campaigns. Her influence deepened. Today, younger generations encounter her through words as much as photographs. In discussions about diversity in beauty advertising, her name surfaces not just as participant, but as precedent. Then, Veronica Webb proved that a black supermodel could embody elegance and intellect simultaneously. Now, she stands as proof that influence does not fade when the lights go down. It evolves into perspective. She didn't just wear fashion. She questioned it and changed it from within. Karen Alexander, The Power of Quiet Control, New Jersey, late 1980s. Fashion was shedding the excess of the previous decade. The drama, the spectacle, the noise, all fading into something cooler, sharper, more restrained. The 1990s would belong to minimalism, and Karen Alexander understood that before most did. She didn't enter the industry loudly. She didn't chase headlines. But when she appeared in campaigns and editorials, something held your attention. It wasn't flamboyance. It was control, a stillness that felt intentional. In a decade that prized understatement, Karen became its embodiment, working closely with designers who defined the minimalist movement, most notably Calvin Klein. She aligned perfectly with fashion's new language: clean lines, emotional distance, quiet confidence. She proved that impact didn't require exaggeration. It required precision. But beneath the surface of that era's sleek aesthetic, opportunities for black models were still fragile. Inclusion could disappear as quickly as it appeared. Karen navigated that instability with discipline. She positioned herself not as a trend, but as a constant, reliable, composed, professional. There was power in that restraint. While others were styled to be hypervisible, Karen resisted overexposure. She allowed the work to speak. And when the industry began shifting again, chasing new faces, new extremes, she made a decision that few models do. She stepped away, not out of rejection, out of choice. She transitioned into visual art and design, moving from being seen to creating. It was a quiet reclamation of authorship. She refused to measure relevance by frequency of appearance. Years later, as fashion cycles revisited the 1990s, her image resurfaced, timeless, modern, uniged by trend. Critics and historians began acknowledging what had been understated at the time. Karen Alexander helped define the visual identity of an entire era. Then, she proved that subtlety could command a room. Now, she represents creative independence, relevance without noise. She didn't compete for attention. She mastered it by holding still. Danielle Luna, the prototype the industry wasn't ready for. London, 1966. The world was in cultural upheaval, music, art, rebellion. Yet fashion still clung to rigid hierarchies of beauty. Then Danielle Luna appeared on the cover of British Vogue, and history shifted in a single frame. Born Peggy and Freeman in Detroit, she reinvented herself completely. New name, new persona, new mythology. Danielle Luna wasn't trying to fit into fashion. She was trying to transcend it. With elongated limbs, haunting eyes, and an almost surreal presence, she didn't resemble the girl next door fantasy magazines preferred. She looked otherworldly. That was both her gift and her isolation. Styled as avant-garde, ethereal, nearly abstract, Luna was celebrated as art, but rarely stabilized as industry infrastructure. She became a muse to photographers, a figure in Andy Warhol's orbit, a symbol of 1960s experimentation. Yet admiration did not translate into protection. She was often positioned as spectacle rather than professional. The industry loved her difference, as long as it remained exotic. When commercial fashion pivoted back toward safer uniformity, Luna's opportunities fractured. She moved to Europe seeking acceptance, working in film and editorials, but never receiving sustained support her influence warranted. She lived ahead of language, embodying fluid identity, surreal beauty, and intellectual mystique decades before those ideas were marketable. In 1979, she died at just 33 years old. The industry moved on quickly, but history didn't. Over time, scholars and designers began to understand the magnitude of her presence. She wasn't just the first black model on British Vogue. She was a prototype for unconventional casting, for abstraction, for the permission to be strange, cerebral, undefinable. Then, Danielle Luna opened a door she was never invited to stay behind. Now, she stands as a reminder that being first often means being unprotected. She didn't just expand beauty. She expanded imagination and paid the price for being too far ahead. They weren't trends. They were turning points. Before fashion learned how to say diversity, these women forced it to mean something. They broke covers. They broke barriers. They broke silence. And every runway today still echoes with their footsteps. So the question isn't whether they changed fashion. It's whether fashion has truly changed. If their legacy moved you, don't just watch, engage. Comment below. Has the industry evolved or just adapted? Like, subscribe, and share this story. Because real icons don't fade. They rewrite history.